Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today, let's talk about 5 writing mistakes you don't even know you're making. Disclaimer, before we get too much into it, this video does not come from a place of judgment. These are things that I make as well, or made, and are still actively trying to fix. And also, I'm sure that my book will come out and everyone will find something wrong with it. So this is not a place of judgment. This is not a place of better than. I just thought this is just a list of some common writing mistakes that I see a lot in newer writers, or I made when I was a newer writer, or just things that I think I did for so long and didn't realize was not good. When I figured out not to do it or how to fix it, it changed the writing game for me. So this is coming from a place of trying to be helpful, but I'm probably going to make some funny jokes and quips and be poking fun at the habit of doing this, but I'm not making fun. I do it too, and I do probably much stupider things. With all that being said, let's get right into the first writing mistake you don't even know you're making. And that is hiding behind big fancy words or flowery language and elaborate prose. Knowing and using the biggest words or the most elaborate word for a certain thing, or using super flowery language or fancy prose, which basically is just what is prose? How the hell do you how do you define prose? The way in which you describe something, maybe? I don't know. Basically just how you write your sentences, metaphors you use, what sort of language you use, what words you use. Basically prose is just how you say stuff. Saying things in the most complicated, poetic, flowery way is not always the best way. In fact, it depends on the kind of book you're writing, I guess, but I would almost say it's almost never the best way. Some of my favorite lines in my favorite books, or that I've written, or that I've read, is always the most simple ones that are just a line that makes you think and feel. It's not the most complicated, it's not the most flowery, it's not the biggest vocabulary sentence. You don't need big words and lots of prose to impact people and convey a feeling. In fact, I think it's even better to not, and to use simpler language and more down-to-earth language that, helps you connect with people and readers to feel and relate to your characters. Because sometimes, and this could be just me, maybe I have a problem with this, but whenever I read a book that has is written really literarily, it's really fancy and prosy, I almost feel it's too good for me. I can't relate to it, I can't really feel or see myself in it, because it's just not very relatable or down to earth, or it's just very elaborate, and I'm not an elaborate person myself. I'm a simple person, so and not dumb, just simple. The most simple phrase of oh, I've felt that before, it hits so much more than some elaborate, fancy, complicated metaphors. And I think when I was younger, especially, I wanted to write so fancily and stuff, and I wanted it to just sound like I knew what I was doing. But I almost feel when I read books that are super flowery and stuff, it makes me feel they don't know what they're doing. Because I think the ability to make readers connect to a book and love a book so much with simple language, I feel is almost harder. Because with flowery prose, there's almost a inherent thing that you're just oh, this is so good. Because I think everyone sort of in school, maybe, is that when it happens? We all associate elaborate prose and fancy words and big words with being smart and it being good, but that's not true. Big fancy words and and complicated prose does not equal good. Focus on making your writing good and connect with your readers and connect with yourself, and like what sort of prose and wording and way of writing is most genuine to you. That is what's going to impact people and readers and connect with people and get your message across, not being fancy and pretentious. The next writing mistake that you don't even know you're making is editing while writing. Writing a chapter and then reading it over and over and over, and editing and making sure it's perfect. Like, you will never ever move past that. Like, you will never finish a book. You will never get much progress done. It's not helpful to do that over and over. And I used to do that because I thought it was easier to edit like one chapter at a time. You know what I mean? Like, get one perfect and then do another one. I thought it was like efficient, but it's actually very not efficient. It's way more very not efficient. It's very inefficient. But just sitting down, and this kind of goes back to you can't edit a blank page, which is something that I think about all the time, and if I could, maybe I should put it on my wall or something so I can stare at it all the time. It's one of those like writing advices that stuck with me, and basically, and that's because it's true. I mean, you can edit and revise and make your book as perfect as it needs to be, but you can't do that when it doesn't exist. You know what I mean? And if you repeatedly go over chapters and edit and make sure they're perfect right then and there, you're never gonna finish. So try your very hardest to put your perfectionism tendencies aside and write a whole chapter or a whole scene or whatever, and then just move on. You're allowed to reread if you need like context for your next chapter, or if you need to go back and look at something. It's not like you're forbidden from looking, you're forbidden from editing. Don't change anything yet. When your entire book is done, you've typed the end, then you can go through and edit the whole thing, and it's just so much better. Like, when you are in writing mode, you write, and then you switch to editing mode and you edit, and then you switch to revising mode and you revise. Instead of trying to switch your brain into all different gears all the time, sort of getting in the mindset of like, for the next couple months, I'm writing. I'm getting this book out of my head onto the page, and I'm not worrying about anything. I'm not worrying how it sounds or like it being perfect or being exactly as I imagined it, because that is what editing and tweaking is for. But you cannot edit and tweak if you have nothing. If you just keep going over the same thing, you have no story to make perfect, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's one that really changed it for me. The first book that I didn't edit while writing, I finished in 5 months. So I personally highly recommend this tip, because like, I used to spend 5 months writing 5 chapters, you know what I mean? So yeah, do not edit while writing. Bad. I mean, like, I understand the mindset of wanting to do it. I did it, but yeah, try to break that habit for sure. It helps so much with just getting the whole book out and then fixing. The next writing mistake you don't even know you're making is having big blocks of text. So like really long paragraphs that just describe so much. Like describing a new room or the setting or a character's thought process. This is something I notice a lot in newer or younger writers. It's just big blocks of paragraphs that are like take up the entire page. I have 2 pieces of advice of how to fix this. Okay, wait. It's bad. Let me tell you why it's bad first. It's really hard to read a big block of text. Like, it's hard to follow that with your eyes. It's also hard to understand because you're trying to, as a reader, you're trying to like process so much information at once. Instead of, here's the advice, split up your paragraphs. I would much rather an entire thought process or whatever, or like character's internal monologue take up 2 pages because it's split up, and like into multiple paragraphs than have an entire chunk of paragraph that's like one page. It just is so much easier to intake and process little chunks at a time, and it's easier to read on the page when there's like variety in paragraphs and how they look, if that makes sense. Like having the indents, having varying sentence lengths is so much easier to read with your eyes than a big chunk of paragraph. And the second advice I would have is make sure that if you are like describing a room or a new setting or something, if it's like a describing paragraph and it's so long, make sure that you are only describing the important things that are vital to your reader's understanding. If your characters walk into a bar, why is that always the example I use? And I'm picturing like a tavern, like an old tavern. Anyways. And I write summer romances. So where this thought comes from, I don't know. I must make my characters in my beach romance go to a tavern. If your characters are walking into a tavern, you don't need to do an entire so long paragraph of what the air smells like and feels like and what it sounds like and what the floor is made of and what the floor feels like underfoot and what the walls look like and what the walls are decorated with and what the guests are like and what the menu is like. There are certain things when describing a room or a new setting or whatever it may be, just describing, that are necessary for the reader's sensory experience, and I think you have to pick depending on what it is. I feel like if it's an outdoor thing, I like to focus more on like smells and sounds, and when it's a room, I focus more on what the room looks like what the walls are like and what the floor is like. So if I was to describe, I was combining the word describe and tavern. If I was to describe a tavern, I would describe that the walls and the floor, in one sentence, are made of this sort of chestnutty oak, and they are decorated like a fisherman's cabin. For some reason, I'm picturing a fisherman tavern. Just with fish on the walls and like anchors on the walls, and like it's almost like a pirate vibe. So that's one sentence. You just described I just described what the walls and the floors look like in one sentence. And then I would describe that, I would just say like it's packed in here, there's many patrons, they all have drinks in front of them and are laughing loudly. There you just described the atmosphere, the sounds, the menu and the drinks, and the crowd in 2 sentences, instead of spending so much time being super detailed and elaborate. And like being detailed is great because you want to avoid white room syndrome, which I've suffered from in the past, but where you don't describe a room enough because you're picturing it, and so you forget to describe it, because I just like, well, they should know what I was thinking, and it's like, no. But yeah, just make sure you're not describing too much. Your readers can fill in the blanks, and like every reader is going to picture something a little different anyways. When I describe pirate tavern, I think I meant medieval. No, but I'm picturing pirate for some reason. Like it's like a coastal, that's where my beach books come in. It's like a tavern on the coast, where the fishermen go. That's what I'm imagining. Anyways, but you're gonna be picturing, even with my descriptions, you're gonna be picturing something completely different than what I am. So you just have to do your best to get the vibes across, and yeah, let your reader like imagine the details. Like if I say that there are pirate fisherman decor on the walls, I don't really need to, unless I want to, or it's relevant, I don't really need to describe exactly what's on the walls. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't need to describe what kinds of paintings, or that there's a singing fish. Well, actually, I might mention there's a singing fish because I feel like that helps establish the vibes. But I'm not going to mention that there are like shelves with books and seashells on it, and I'm not going to mention that the tables that I'm mentioning are like squeaky and wobbly, unless your characters go sit down at the table and then the table squeaks. Like make sure you're not dropping too much information all at once in one paragraph. Describe what is enough to get the vibe across. Again, sorry for saying the word vibe. I just like don't know. I feel like that's the right word. Get the vibe across of the room, and then you can describe details later. Like your characters could walk past the wall and the singing fish could activate and look at them and start singing, and then your readers will be like, oh my god, there's a singing fish on the wall, and then it just builds their imagining of it even more as the scene goes on. But instead of just info dumping all of it in a block and wall of text, do enough to get the vibe, and then you can give details and sensory details as the scene progresses. I just feel like having big blocky walls of text with no broken up like sentences is so hard to read, and also a lot of the time unnecessary. That's basically what I was trying to get across with that, but I started talking about a pirate tavern instead. But hopefully you understood the point. The next writing mistake you don't even know you're making, I kind of mentioned earlier, but let's go in more detail, and that is you're too in your head about how you sound and trying to sound fancy and professional and like you know what you're doing, instead of just trying to be yourself, and instead of just being yourself and using your voice. I think that's something that like I really had to learn, because it doesn't come natural to me to write in a very professional way, if that makes sense. I mean, I still have to write professionally and like refine my work, obviously, but like I write more of like train of thought writing. And for the longest time I was trying to write fantasy novels and horror novels, because those were my favorites to like watch and read and think about, but my writing voice, the one that comes naturally to me, doesn't really suit those genres. So figuring out that like my voice is that I really love writing YA, contemporary fiction, and writing teenagers mindsets and like coming of age stories. That's what is best suited for my voice. It was like a clicking moment, because it was finally so easy for me to describe things and come up with dialogue and come up with plot points, because I finally found my genre instead of doing sort of what I thought I should do, or I was like, well, I like watching horror movies, so I guess I should watch horror. I finally was like, oh my gosh, obviously this is my thing, because like my favorite books are coming of age stories. Most of them are YA. Most of my favorite shows and movies are like YA rom-coms with like lots of drama and coming of age and relatable characters. And I was like, this makes so much sense. I just thought that I was supposed to write something darker or like grittier or with more substance. I'm putting big air quotes on that, because I personally don't feel like YA contemporary has no substance. I hate when people say that, because it's like YA contemporary coming of age is like the backbone of TV and film and books. So I hate when people say that, especially also about romance. It pisses me off. It's an emotional substance. It's a feel-good substance. It's like a feeling seen and feeling like you deserve love, and like seeing characters that are like you and relating to them and seeing them get good things is so great. That's the whole point of coming of age. It's supposed to make you feel not alone and like relate to the characters and see yourself and be like, okay, like if they can do it, I can do it. Like that's what it's for. And like I guess like books that are like lit fic or like fantasy, high fantasy, or like the sci-fi genre, of course, like that might have more substance, like thought-provoking, but feeling-provoking and thought-provoking are not like, they're not mutually exclusive. You can have both, but also one is not good and the other bad. They're just both different things. There is place for all different kinds of books in the world, and like don't feel like you have to write a certain kind of book to be a legit respected writer. Of course, people are going to be stupid, and they are going to, like, I'm just gonna say it, they're going to be rude. Like, people always kind of, especially like family members and friends, are always kind of like, you're writing like YA drama, like what? And it's like a little bit of judgment, not a lot of judgment, because I think most non-writers think that being a writer is cool. Like, they're like, whoa, really? But there's a little bit of like, okay, like if I wrote something like a sci-fi that was a commentary on society, like would that be taken more seriously? I guess yes, but I just feel like you have to understand and like come to terms with the fact that writing isn't about being taken seriously or about being smart and like intellectual, not creative writing at least. It's about telling a story that you want to, and like that connects with readers and tells this, like, you have to tell stories that resonate with you, and like it's not about what other people think. I think that the only people whose opinion you should consider is readers, because people who don't read or who are pretentious readers and they don't read romance and they don't read like anything just for a silly goofy time, which romance isn't always for a silly goofy time. I hate when people say that. I hate when people are like, let me read my brain rot. It pisses me off, because enjoying romance and like wanting a coming of age story and wanting just to feel good and not have to like think, but not in like a brain rot way, in like a, I just want to connect to characters and I want to gasp at drama and I want to be entertained. That is not a crime. I think like reading tends to be a little bit pretentious, of people thinking that because they read certain genres they're better than people who read other genres, which is so stupid, because there's just room for everything. And also, people who don't read romance and like hate on romance and are like it's dumb, I dare you to read a romance novel, because you're gonna love it. Like there's no way that those people have actually tried reading romances, or like maybe they read one, they didn't like it. Like romance is such a fun genre, and like I don't write romance. I write heavy romance subplots, so maybe that's why I'm so defensive of it. But I just feel like my books that I write of like YA contemporary also kind of fall into the line of not being taken seriously, and it just pisses me off, because it's like there can be such important stories told in YA in general, but in YA contemporary, you can tell such important stories, you can tackle really important topics, you can reach young people. Like I just don't really know why like it's so hated on. But yeah, basically I went on a kind of a tangent, but yeah, make sure you're writing what you love and how you love it, and like use your voice and like what comes naturally to you. Don't worry about being taken seriously or being like well renowned or being like fancy or being like serious. I just feel like writing is so hard, and it's such like a difficult thing to do, and like it's really hard to like self-publish or get traditionally published and write as a career. It takes a lot of dedication and work, and I just am like, why would we want to do that for and we're writing books that we hate. Like, you know what I mean? Like, write things and describe things and use your own voice and use prose that is true to yourself, and don't force yourself into a box just because like people who literally can't read are judgmental. Focus on the reading community, focus on the writing community, because those are people who like understand and who are wanting books that are not so serious or like not so intellectual. Yeah, I just hate the stigma around it all, because I feel like it forces younger, newer writers to be like, well, I have to write something that's like the next great American novel and like whatever, and it's not about that. It's not about telling the best story. It's about telling like this is so cheesy, what like your heart wants to tell. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like I have like these stories of characters that I really want to tell, and I want to find other people who relate to these characters, and like I relate to them sometimes or some parts of their life, and I'm like, they're telling me, these characters are coming to me. Okay, now I sound crazy, but I'm getting these ideas and these characters are like, and I want to tell these characters stories. Why would I write a book that is like taken seriously and is like a classic and is like whatever, that I don't want to. Yeah, don't worry about people who aren't readers and writers. Like, don't take advice or like don't change the course of your life for people who can't read. Judgmental people who are going to ask what you do, and you're going to say I'm a writer, and they say what books, and you say these, and they pull a face when they haven't read a book since 3rd grade. Loser. The number one writing mistake you're making and don't even know. This one is shady. I'm so sorry. I'm going to call so many people out with this. Hold on to something, you guys. I'm so sorry. The number one mistake you're making is saying you're a writer, thinking about writing, and making outlines and coming up with ideas and making Pinterest boards and making Spotify playlists and talking about your books, but you never write. That is the worst mistake you can make. And of course, I understand that life is busy, life is hectic, sometimes you don't have the time, sometimes you don't have the energy. Of course I understand, but I'm saying it's a mistake because, again, you are just absolutely betraying yourself. You clearly, if you're doing all this stuff and you want to be a writer so bad, commit to it. You know what I mean? Like, dedicate your time to chasing your dreams. You'll never finish books. You'll never know what works for you. You'll never be able to find your voice. You'll never be able to fix your walls of paragraphs. You'll never be able to edit. You'll never be able to not edit as you write. You'll never be able to hide behind big fancy words and then fix it if you don't do it. You have to do it. It's a disservice to yourself and also to people, because like I was talking about, there are definitely people who want to read your book and like will see themselves in it. It's just a disservice to have all of these ideas and not ever write it. Also, this is another shady thing that I saw once and I was like, oh my god, get me. Because I do all this stuff too, of course. But I try to write. But I write so much more than I used to, and I've really committed and dedicated myself to it. So I recommend doing the same. It's so rewarding to like finally have books that have been in here forever and are finally out of my head. And other people have read them, and I have printed them, and I've held them, and maybe they'll be out soon for everyone else too. I don't know. Like, it just is so rewarding, and this is the point of writing, I think. This is just my favorite part of being a writer, is actually writing. And I'm so glad that I got past that block of just the constant brainstorming and the constant making playlists and Pinterest boards and coming up with new ideas and never actually writing past chapter 1. It's just such a disservice, and it's the number one mistake. The other shady thing I was going to say was, one time I saw this TikTok and it was like, if you say you're a writer but you haven't written in like a couple months, you're not a writer, because writing is a verb. I got really scared when they said that. I was like, oh shit. Don't do yourself the disservice of laziness. Whoa. That was a crazy quote. Sometimes I'm like, should I be a motivational speaker, you guys? No. I'm too negative. But like, it's a disservice to not give it a chance and not try to finish the book. If you want to be a writer and you're thinking about it so much and you're making playlists and Pinterest boards and plots and ideas, it's what you want. You know what I mean? Like, it's what you want. I think a lot of the time, this is going to be another read. Look out. I think a lot of the time, and I did this too, I think people use the excuse of, I don't have enough time, or it's not ready, the idea's not ready, it hasn't cooked long enough in my brain, I haven't brainstormed enough, it's not good enough. I think these are excuses for you being scared. I think you're scared to write and it's not good. It's not what you imagined. I think you're scared to write and learn that you're actually not a good writer. I think you're scared to write and publish because you're scared no one's gonna read it. I think you are saying that you can't do it But it's not that you can't do it, it's you're scared. And I just think, don't live your whole life not doing the things that you want to do. I just think it's a waste of time to not do the things that clearly like your heart wants to do, your soul wants to do. Again, not to be sappy, but like I think people who want to be writers to that level, I've seen so many people like this who want to be writers to this level, like just take the chance on yourself and try and do it. I swear to God, it is so worth it, and it is not as scary as you think it is, and it won't be as bad as you think it is either. Like, I always think my books are bad, and I've written 2 complete ones at this time and several outlines, and I started my 3rd one recently, teaser, and I was like, I was sitting there and chapter 1 was staring at me, and I was like, oh God, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm so bad at this. Like, those thoughts will never end. The fear will never end. But what comes with doing it anyway is the rewardingness of typing the end. I could cry right now, you guys. What a feeling. Or hitting 10K for the first time, hitting 50K for the first time, writing that scene you've been thinking about for years, again, typing the end on your first draft, editing and watching it come to life, and of course you still are scared, and like there are gonna be people who don't like your book, you are gonna be bad at writing sometimes, like all of those fears that I think are holding you back. Who am I speaking to right now? You. Are going to be true sometimes, but like, to be morbid, but like, do you want to die and never have tried? Never? Just try. What's the worst that could happen? You write a book and it's bad and then you never show anyone. Or you write a book and you really love it, and even if it's bad, you dedicate your time to editing and revising and fixing it, and then you put it out there and you are a published author just like you always dreamed. Yeah, I think the number one writing mistake that you can make, and you don't even realize that you're making it, is not writing. This video got really sappy and motivational. I always get like this when I talk about writing broadly. I don't know if you've noticed, I get really like sentimental just because it's my favorite thing in the world, and I really do make these videos. I make these videos, writing tips and tricks videos and everything, for 2 reasons. The first, selfish-ish reason, is I am a Virgo eldest daughter. I do like bossing people around, and I do like giving advice, and I think I have a very organized brain, if that makes sense. So I like giving advice on things because I think most of the time I kind of know what I'm doing. No, I don't. Of course, it's fun to like give advice and like whatever, and like talk about things I know a lot about. Of course, that makes me feel good selfishly. But the second reason is I started this channel after I finished my first book, I think. No, I think I was in the middle of it. Yeah, I think so. I think I started this channel before I even started writing June Gloom, or like, I don't remember. I actually have to go back and look. But, because I was finally, for the first time in my life, finishing books and learning about writing and taking it seriously, when my entire life I had been making Pinterest boards and making playlists and coming up with ideas and saying I was a writer, and like I was doing all the stuff, but I wasn't writing. And a lot of it was I was busy and had other things to focus on, especially when I was in school and stuff like that, and that took up a lot of time. But I really do think I was just scared. I was scared to write and it not be good, and then I would have to face the truth that I'm really bad at this thing that I've always done and I always wanted to do, and like that I think was my biggest fear. And then I thought, what if the ideas aren't any good? What if? Like, it was just a bunch of like anxiety. And when I started writing for real and I just was like, I'm gonna do it, and if it's bad, I don't know, I'm just gonna do it. And when I stopped editing while writing, when I stopped using the big fancy words, when I started leaning into my voice, when I started telling the stories that felt good for me to get out, I started finishing books. I started feeling really rewarded and fulfilled, and like that really is ultimately the main reason I make videos and talk about it, is because like this sounds so dumb, but like I want everyone to feel the way that I felt when I finished my first ever book. Like I think I cried for 2 days because I was 17 and I'd been writing my entire life and I'd never done that. I'd never like committed to myself and committed to an idea, and like, will that book ever see the light of day? No, it won't, because I've found my niche, found my genre that I want to pursue, and like I've come up with ideas since then that I like more and feel more like me, because I've tweaked, because I've gotten to know myself more as a writer. But I did it. I finished it. That book is still so special to me, and it meant so much to me at the time, and I just want other people who are like little me, who was like wanted this so bad and dreamed of having books and dreamed of finishing books and dreamed of having people interested in the books and all of that. Like, I want everyone who's like that and still in that phase to feel how I feel now. Does that make sense? Because it just is the most fulfilling thing in the world. I'm like a reverse gatekeeper when it comes to writing. I want everybody to feel this feeling of like how it felt when I finished my first book for the first time, how it felt when I came up with June Gloom, which was, I was like, this is something. To me, I'm not saying it's the best thing ever, I just was like, this is something special is in this one. How it felt when I finished June Gloom, how it felt when I sent my book to beta readers and had feedback for the first time, how it felt when, how it feels when I post these videos and talk about stuff and you guys care so much, like, and I have an audience who cares so much about me. Like, this is what little me in middle school and high school, who was too scared to try, this is what I daydreamed about, if that makes sense. And that's why I make these videos, because I want everyone to feel just how good that feels. To literally, the feeling that I'm stuck on is finishing your first book, like completing that first draft, that first draft. One of the best feelings ever, maybe the best feeling ever, and it doesn't get less. Like, I've finished another book since then, June Gloom, and that felt really, really good to finish too. It just feels like peace, and you're like, I did it. Anyways, that is it for today's video. I'm sorry that I yapped. Hopefully this was inspirational, I guess. I didn't know this video would be inspirational. I thought I was gonna be complaining the whole time, but please comment down below if you have any questions or anything to say, and like the video if you liked it, and subscribe for more content like this. But yeah, with all that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a really great day. Bye!